Welcome to the bottom of the scrub bin. We are Lauren and Pam, nurses by training, pharma by accident, and moms by pure chaos. We've cleaned up the messes in hospitals, in drug safety, and in life, so now we're talking about them. Grab your coffee, your scrub top, or whatever's at the bottom of your own bin, because we're digging in.
Hey everyone, if you're tuning in and looking for a polished podcast that's perfectly edited, you're already in the wrong place.
Yes, we are not refined, we are not polished, but Pam and I are real, and we're definitely heavily caffeinated at this time.
Yes. Welcome to the very first episode of Bottom of the Scrub Bin. Hi, I'm Pam.
And I'm Lauren. Both of us are PEDS nurses by training and somehow ended up in pharma and then somehow ended up co-founding a pharmacovigilance consulting company called SafeCue Solutions. And now we're adding podcasts to that list on our resume.
Why Bottom of the Scrub Bin? Well, we're going to be digging into the real stuff, the burnout, the chaos, the wins nobody talks about, the wild career pivots, just honest conversation that stays in the break room or the parking lot, or like Lauren and I when we text each other all the time, even 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 a.m. Yeah. Let's jump into our first real segment, who we are and beyond our job titles.
Yes. So let's do some personal introductions. Again, I'm Pam, and I have a husband of 20 years named Matt. And also, I have a 19-year-old son, Tyler, who is in UNC Charlotte.
Yeah,
And
you're
he's
not busy
going,
at all.
not at all.
Yeah. So, like Pam, I'm a nurse by training, but even more than that, the biggest part of my life is being a mom, and that's where everything is happening. That's where all the chaos is occurring. I'm married. I have 2 girls, and most days my life is a rotating schedule of school, homework, sports, Girl Scouts, more homework, laundry, and then trying to get some sort of a healthy dinner on the table without basically losing my mind. Yep. So now that you know who we are as people, why don't we talk about how we got here? Because neither one of us took a straight path to get to where we are right now. I don't even know where we are, but we're on the windy road, Pam.
We're on
how
a
did we get
windy
there?
Maybe we'll go back to like early nursing. We can start there.
Okay.
And like what drew us into nursing. Because I feel like every nurse has some story or not. And it could be like when they were younger, it could be something that just hit when they were older. Every nurse has their own story about why they got into it. As far as nursing, my background is I started out as a nursing assistant while I was in nursing school. And then I graduated nursing school and went straight into neurology on the neurology floor, and then went from there. After I had Tyler, I needed a regular schedule.
Yeah.
So I went from that to a pediatric clinic. And then, as we'll get into it later, transition into pharma. And for me, when I was younger, I had an aunt, Mary Alice, and she worked at a large hospital around here, and she was loved, and she was like so quirky. Like her personality was so quirky, and she just did these fun things with me and my cousin who's my same age. And I just remember her being so fun, but she also was always learning as a nurse, and she taught nursing. And I remember her just having all the nursing books in the back of her car, which, by the way, the woman made very good money. And no matter what, she was the type of person that drove this orange Volkswagen Bug.
So very relatable.
Relatable. Didn't matter how much money she had. She was driving the orange Bug, and that's
very real.
Very real person, but so unique. So she also got me and my cousin our first cash register, because we love to have a store when you're a child. And then she also got us our first nursing kit. And so it just resonated with me ever since I was little. And so that was from the time I was influenced by her, I knew I wanted to be a nurse.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's cool to have somebody in your life like that.
Yeah.
Mine
what
was
about you?
Very weird, chaotic, really. So my whole life, I had dreamed about being a veterinarian, right? I loved animals, loved spending time with animals. I was that girl volunteer that would go out and save the birds. I love cats. And so I went to NC State to get my undergrad degree in biological sciences in the pre-vet program. And I don't know, something was just calling me to maybe go into the medical field. I worked at the YMCA as a camp counselor one summer and just fell in love with the kids.
Mhm.
And that kinda made me pivot and realize that maybe nursing was calling me. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's what it felt like. I wanted
Not
the
at all.
science, I wanted the
Mhm.
hands-on experience.
Mhm.
And so that's kinda how I pivoted into nursing school after realizing veterinary medicine was not for me. I
Mhm.
went back to school in Northern Virginia, and I got my nursing degree, and then I went into pediatric hematology, oncology, bone marrow transplant at Duke University, and that was very incredible work. It was very meaningful work to
Oh,
me.
yeah.
I
I
love
bet.
those kids. I
Mhm.
love the family. I love the hands-on work that I was doing. But as you can imagine, like, it got really intense
Mhm.
emotionally, very
Right.
emotionally intense in the way
Mhm.
that changes you. So, I know you can relate to this, but, like, every day I came home, I felt like I was carrying it on my shoulders. I
Mhm.
was thinking about those patients. I was thinking about the parents. I was going through my day, what med did I give? What med did I compound, start to finish?
Right.
And that line of work is not just sad, but like I said, it's very heavy. You are carrying that with you.
You take a lot
And
home.
then, yeah.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, the hours were exhausting and the physical toll was exhausting. I just remember sometimes driving home after 3 12-day shifts being like, what happened? You were just so physically and emotionally
You
exhausting.
don't remember the last 12 hours at the
Yes.
hospital. That's
Yes. Yes.
because 'cause you're so, like, in the moment and rushing and getting and patient to patient. Yeah.
Yes, yes, call
Yeah.
bell after call bell, and you're
Mhm.
giving it your all. I think that's just in the nurse's nature. Like,
Mhm.
you are giving every bit of yourself, and
Barely having time to eat.
yes, yeah, I lived off of Diet Dr. Peppers for those years that I was in nursing, bedside nursing.
I still eat very fast, and I can't get over that. I've been out of
I'm
clinical
sure.
nursing for, what, 15 years now, almost 16
Mhm.
years, and I eat so fast because you
Yeah.
had that phone on your hip and those patients were calling you.
It's a matter of
So it was like
survival, right?
you were, like, eating as fast as you could if
Yeah,
you got a break, and so
yeah.
I just have not broken that habit.
No, I remember a doctor commenting to me one time and saying, "Why are you running everywhere? Why do you run everywhere?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to fit in a meal. I'm trying to take care of these like 5 patients, give
Mhm,
chemotherapy, give blood products. Like,
mhm.
I don't have time not to run everywhere, kind of like you eat really fast."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I think there is that misconception that nurses leave the bedside because they don't care or they can't handle the
Mhm.
tough work. But for me, I feel like it was the opposite. I cared
You care
too
too
much,
much.
right?
Mhm.
It started to wear me down and kind of break me down like brick, brick, brick. And I didn't want to
Right.
become numb because I wanted to continue to be passionate, not
Mhm.
bitter. And I didn't want
Mhm.
to lose that side of me that was really good at nursing and really good at being compassionate and really good at the hands on work.
Well, the issue there is that when you have so many patients, you can't provide the care or even have the time to sit with your patients and get to know them like you want,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah.
that kinda goes into a topic that we have is like, those early years and what you learned. And when you're in nursing school, you have 1 to 2 patients that you're taking care of, and you
Yeah.
have time to sit with them, get to know them.
Mhm.
And that's what I went for. Even when I was a nursing assistant, you have a lot of patients, but you have more time with those patients, or I
Right.
did anyways.
Yep.
So the one thing we learned, or I learned when I was younger, is that the reason why I left bedside was it was too many patients and I couldn't provide the care that I felt
Yes.
those patients needed. And that's not fair
Yeah.
to the patients. And
Mhm.
it's not fair to the healthcare workers that go home and they carry that home with them because they're going, did I do everything? Did I give all the meds? Do it, what did I miss?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is the weight of not being able to, take care of them as you would
Mhm.
like to,
Mhm.
meet the standards, then
Right.
also the weight of carrying all those emotions with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So leaving the bedside, we both took an unusual path
Mhm.
after nursing.
Yes.
So, like I touched on earlier, I kind of reached that point where I knew I needed a change,
Mhm.
because I was carrying all that
Mhm.
weight back with me. And yeah, the schedules were grueling. And shout out to all those nurses, healthcare providers,
Mhm.
doctors, vets, everybody who does work that grueling schedule. We see you, we hear you.
Mhm.
But at that point, I needed a change.
Yeah.
And a friend that I was formerly working with suggested going into pharmacovigilance at a local contract research organization or
Mhm.
CRO. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? I'm sorry. Did, what did you say? Yeah, pharmacovigilance or PV, as we now like to call it.
Or drug
Um,
safety, yeah.
yeah, or drug safety.
Mhm.
Because at the time I was in nursing school, nobody brought up PV, nobody brought up pharmacovigilance. You go, you pick up your prescriptions from the doctor or the pharmacy,
Mhm.
and there's this little pamphlet in there and with the side effects and how to take it, and you don't give it a second thought, right? Well,
Mhm.
that's pharmacovigilance. Nobody informed me in nursing school or even when I was in bedside nursing that there was this whole other career path that I could take where I could still protect patients, but in a very different way than
Mhm.
attending to them at the bedside. So,
Right.
my nature, I just held my breath and took a leap,
Right.
went into that whole world of pharmacovigilance, not knowing where it would take me or
No.
what the heck I was getting into.
So the way mine was really weird how I found out. It's very similar in a way where somebody's
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I was actually at a 5K race." So for our listeners, my he's a retired police officer now, but so they would have a race every year. It was the 5K Run for Your Heroes race. And no, I don't run, I walk. But
Same.
if I'm running,
Somebody's chasing me, and
you
even then
better
I'm gonna
run
give up.
too, ask questions later.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was at this race and I was kinda telling all of everything we just mentioned to a friend of mine I was walking with, and then I was also complaining, like, about the pay, right? So and because let's be clear, nurses do not get paid what they're worth. I was complaining about this, I was complaining about that, and this girl next to me is like, "Hey, I work in same for you, pharmacovigilance." I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
A what?" And she worked at a CRO, which is contract research organization,
Mhm.
and she's like, why don't you try it?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I sent her my
Yep.
resume and she got my foot in the door, which is
Mhm.
crazy because it's so hard now.
Yeah.
You really have to put in a lot of resumes and really work at it to kinda get in the industry right now.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's how I got it, and it was so bad. I was so new that when I was
Mhm.
working at this large CRO, and I remember it was, like, a couple weeks in, and I was like, "Blah, blah," and I'm like, "I keep seeing CRO," because in corporate, in pharma, they use a lot of acronyms, and I'm like, "What is a CRO?" And she goes,
You're
"You
working for
work
one.
for a CRO." "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." She goes, "Don't say that to anybody else." I said, "Okay."
Yeah. No, it was totally uncharted waters, right?
Right,
Uncharted
right.
territory. And it was terrifying because it was so different from
Mhm.
bedside. But it was
Yeah,
fun at the same time, right?
right.
Because it was brand new and it was exciting and I was
Mhm.
learning something new. So
Right.
that was the exciting aspect of it. But there was also this culture shock too, right? Like moving from bedside into corporate
Oh my
America or
gosh. Yeah,
corporate healthcare. It's a different beast
it is.
because suddenly you're in meetings, right? You're
Mhm.
learning new reporting systems. Like I knew what an EHR was and a Pyxis, but you're now
Mhm.
learning safety databases and
TMF,
yeah, TMFs and electronic data capture.
timelines for different
Yeah.
submissions, like all the
Yes.
things.
And
Mhm.
you're also learning how to talk like a corporate person, right?
I'm still learning how to talk like a
I know.
corporate person.
I know. I can't. Yes. And all the acronyms, like you said earlier. Whoa. I think you and I had pages and pages of Word documents with all the acronyms.
I made up
And
my own list of acronyms that you and
mhm,
I had because we were like, "Oh, what is this?"
yeah.
You
And
know?
just because, if you're in corporate or in PV, and just because you're a nurse that's no longer at the bedside, doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
not still protecting patients. We learned that just because, you're in a different area and your care of the patients may look a little different. It is on a larger scale, right? You're still caring for the patients, but it's at a larger scale. You're looking
Mhm.
at clinical trial cases now in PV and you're asking like, does this make sense? Is it serious?
Mhm.
Is it related? Is this a signal?
Right. And to touch on previously what you were saying, the package insert that you get when you pick up your prescriptions, another way to explain it too is like when you're watching the commercials for these pharmaceuticals at the bottom when it says, but if you experience blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, that's drug safety, that's
Yes.
pharmacovigilance. We're reporting that to the regulatory authorities to
Right.
kind of,
All those events that they list at the bottom of the commercial are essentially what we're capturing at a
hmm
patient level and then watching for any trending
hmm
and then reporting that to the regulatory authorities. And I think what surprised me most when entering this new corporate world was how much bedside nursing prepared me for
oh yeah.
pharmacovigilance, right?
hmm hmm
Just because it teaches you pattern recognition,
hmm
definitely critical thinking skills. And I think we need a lot more of that in corporate America right now. And it
Right.
teaches you how to read between the lines and how to spot what doesn't make sense. And in a nutshell, that is pharmacovigilance, keeping
hmm
watch, spotting any
Right,
trends and
and
events.
it took me a while to realize when I interviewed for the position, they asked me probably 3 times, "Are you sure you're ready to leave nursing? Are you sure you're ready to leave the bedside?"
Yeah.
To the point the 3rd time they asked, I was like, "I don't
Yeah.
am I?
Why?
Why are you asking?"
Yeah.
But, yes, I was ready, but I struggled with that for a long time because I went into nursing for a specific reason because you want to help people, you wanna contribute, all that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Well, what am I doing? I'm sitting behind a desk, I'm attending meetings." But in the
Right.
grand scheme, when you finally put it together, what your work does,
Hmm.
you are reading patients' charts and medical
Yeah.
records, and you're putting a story together, and you're making sure that that story, helps in the end, that we're putting safe drugs out there for people.
Yep.
So it did take me a while to realize, okay, I'm still a part of something that's helping. I'm not just sitting behind a computer.
Right. You may not be as hands-on as you were at the
Mhm.
bedside, but you're definitely contributing to the greater good
Right,
of the patients and their well-being.
right, and I wanna go back to that real quick because I
Yeah.
know we've talked to a few people about this first episode, and they're like, "One of the main questions Lauren and I get is, 'How did you get?'" And we did address how we got to pharma, but I think the biggest question for our nurses and our friends and healthcare providers that they're going, "Well, what do I need to do to go down that path?" And I think the biggest thing right now is it is hard to get into pharma without experience right now, but that doesn't
Mhm.
mean you can't. So look for those entry level
Opportunities.
positions,
Mhm.
especially at CROs. Some pharma companies will take you without experience and teach you, but you have to find those.
I started at a
Um,
call center.
yeah, start out
Taking
at an
calls.
entry-level
Yeah.
position, fix your resume up, send it to the CROs, send it to the pharma companies,
Mhm.
find a
Mhm.
recruiter, and see if they can help you out, find you a position and see
Mhm.
something that works for you. So I just wanted to touch on that
Yeah.
because I know that we had a few people say, "Can you address this on your first podcast?" So I
Yeah.
just wanted to do that.
And yeah, and we'll likely delve into that in another episode too
Right.
if we want more details and you want to talk about that further.
Mm,
Yeah. So
correct.
in a nutshell, that's how we both ended up in PV. Once you're in that world long enough, you start realizing how small it really is. And the
Mhm.
funny part is, Pam and I didn't start out as business partners. We started out as
No.
coworkers at these
Yep.
CROs and eventually pharma.
Mhm.
And then we slowly became each other's go to person because we trusted each other. We helped each other out. We even share half of a brain, as we like to joke.
We do.
Yes.
It's like 10 years ago we came together and found the other part of our brain. But
Yeah.
but the reason and I think that's why is you and I, like, if one gets a promotion before the other, we're cheering each other on and we're genuinely happy for that other person.
Yep.
If you had a question for me and I would either answer it, or if I didn't know it, help you find it and vice versa. And I
Hmm.
think that's so important, like to find your
Yeah.
person, to find your work bestie, if you will. And
Help build each
it
other up.
Yeah, it makes work fun and
Yeah.
you give each other confidence, and if,
Yep.
nobody else at the job sees it, well,
At
we
least
were
the 2 of
happy.
you do. Yeah. And that's kinda like what we wanna transition into next. Like, how did we cross paths and how did we end up building SafeCue Solutions together? Pam and I did meet through work at a local
Mhm,
CRO, and I
mhm.
remember thinking, "Wow, this girl is smart." Like, not in a loud, overbearing way, but in a
Yeah,
very calm, confident way.
mhm,
You hold yourself in a very confident way, and I felt like that was really important and key because PV is one of those areas where a lot of people talk like they know what they're talking about and they
mhm.
know what they're doing just because they speak loud and confidently.
Right,
But as you learn, you can tell pretty fast who actually has the clinical knowledge and the critical thinking skills to kind of back that up.
right,
And I
right.
remember you being very direct and very to the point, and
No
that
fluff.
confidence, yeah, I was like, "This girl knows what she's talking about." And I love that because I'm the kind of person where if I feel overwhelmed, I don't need someone to make it more complicated by sugarcoating an issue or
Right,
giving sugar-coated feedback because I feel like that's not how I learn and
mhm,
that's not how I progress. I need
right.
someone like Pam who's like, "Here's the issue, here's the problem, here's what we're gonna do. Let's move, let's get it done."
Well,
Right?
and that's yeah, and I remember pretty much the same thing, my first impression of you, to be honest with you, and okay,
Why not? We're the same.
what hello, same brain. Um, it was when we were working for this CRO, and we had got our title change,
Yes.
and we had then be started to be pulled into, like, director level meetings,
Mhm.
and we get in these meetings, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's so put together."
Ah,
And I'm like,
I
"She
had you
speaks so
fooled.
she's so eloquent
Yeah.
and cool, calm, and collected, and so smart." And then it was funny because we were being called in these meetings and we started taking on the same role,
Mhm.
we would have these back conversations, and it's kind of where everything really started. We have back conversations and be like, "The hell were they talking about?"
But the
Like,
scrub bin conversations, right? Yeah. Yeah.
so then
Those
we were
real
like, "Oh,
conversations.
yeah, yeah." So, and the other thing was, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. I had a trust in you where I would go to you, and if I was wrong and you corrected me, and we still
Mhm.
do this to this day with
Yeah.
our business, with everything, is that I'm not offended when you come because you're direct with me and you're like, "No, that's not right. We have to do this." We can be real with each other
Right.
and tell each other when we're wrong, and we don't take offense to it. We take it as a lesson learned,
Right. Yeah, like
and I think that's important.
yeah, and so essentially we went into corporate, we kinda climbed the ladder up, right?
Yeah.
And made that transition from bedside to corporate.
Mhm. But, you and I both started out at entry level positions. And I
Mhm.
think that is important. I think that's so important because you have to learn the basics. And if you don't know the basics, how are you going to be able to manage one day? And that's
Mhm.
happening a lot lately. And I think we've got to get back to where people have to understand that you
Mhm.
have got to start and put your hands in the work to understand how things function before you just come in and start managing people who are doing the work.
Mhm. But like you said, you learned so much at the
Mhm.
ground level, right?
Mhm.
You need to have that great foundation so that you can build upon it and
Mhm.
lessons learned and then apply that to future experiences when you do reach that senior level or that associate director level or
It'll
director
make you a
level or
better
above.
leader.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
you've seen everything. You've seen all the behind the scenes, the bottom of the scrub bin.
Right.
And I think,
What to do, what not to
yeah,
do.
yes, lots
What
of
pisses
lessons
people
learned.
off and what
Yes,
doesn't.
exactly. And you learn all the caveats of your specific functional area and
Mhm.
corporate in general.
Mhm.
And then, like you touched on, I think the next biggest thing for me was imposter syndrome. That was a really
Oh,
hard thing for me to overcome, especially
right.
kind of just moving up from the ranks, right?
Mhm.
And, I learned that
Right.
I could be a patient advocate in corporate, need to have this imposter syndrome where I
Right.
think, oh, just because you're a director means you know so much more than
No.
me. that's not necessarily always the case
I think you
because
and I
we've
have proved
seen.
that
Yeah.
to be true.
Yeah. So like we've seen it all and we've
Right.
applied everything that we've learned moving
Mhm.
forward. And then always don't forget to look behind you and help those behind you and pull them
Oh,
up too.
that's a big thing I think we're starting to miss in
Yeah.
corporate is I think there's this big and I don't know why, but I'm seeing a lot more of it, and you and I've seen it, where it's almost this mentality of if I make you look bad, it makes me look better because people are starting to want to climb on top of each other for that promotion.
Mhm.
And it's like, you've been here 6 months. You got to work your way up. You got to
Yeah.
do the job. You got to prove yourself. And,
Yeah.
and we're missing that.
And that's what we'll get into here next. Why we started our business, why we became entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
For me, it wasn't one dramatic moment where stood up, slammed my laptop shut, and said, I quit.
We're done.
Thought about it, but that never happened. It was a slow buildup over time.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was the feeling of consistently doing the important work, but watching the system around it become more and more strained. There was more pressure. We had more case volume, more work, more
Hmm.
timelines, stringent timelines, less support, less
Gaps.
time to think.
Right. There were
And
gaps in processes
yeah.
that we kept seeing.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And unfortunately in PV, right? Like you can't just go faster without consequences. And same holds
Oh.
true in healthcare professions because the work has to be accurate, has to
Hmm.
be quality work, and it has to be defensible and it has to
Hmm.
make sense.
Right. And I think over time, and we had talked about SafeCue for a year, like
Yeah.
just talked about it. This is an idea, but the more we saw the gaps in those processes and the quality
Yeah.
of the work going down and more work coming in, but we're not hiring anymore. If you want the quality, you got to have the people. Mm.
And I think those were the types of gaps we kept seeing over and over, people drowning in case volume, the
Mhm.
turnover rates,
Right.
burnout from those stringent timelines. And then, like you said, narratives being written like templates instead of patient
Mhm.
stories, and clinical
Mhm.
reasoning being lost or overlooked because there just
Mhm.
wasn't time to devote to these narratives,
Right.
it became an issue. And
Right.
I know nobody goes into patient safety or nobody goes into their role to do a mediocre job. But if you're boxed into a system that doesn't give you the time, the training, the support, or great
Mhm.
people to work with, you just end up doing what it takes to survive and to get the task done.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's why we started our business
Right.
to alleviate those gaps and give a good quality product.
Yeah. We want those pharma companies to have the option to come and get somebody who we can guarantee they're going to have be a healthcare professional, right? Because that's
Mhm,
what we hire.
mhm,
And they're going to have the experience and you're going to get the quality. And that's
mhm,
one thing that you and I have always been big about. And that's why SafeCue is one of those things that we said, we're not seeing this anymore. We're not seeing the quality. We're seeing a lot of studies that come in, and it's what they call rescue studies. And why do we have to have so many rescue studies?
mhm.
So,
Or inquiries coming from
right,
regulatory authorities. They're
right.
just so, you know, you and I started having those conversations like, what if there was a service that could come in and help teams breathe? What if we could go in and help fix the quality of these cases so that regulatory
Hmm.
authorities aren't coming back with questions or so that teams are better prepared for audits and inspections? And what if we could
Right.
take that additional pressure off of PV teams so they could focus on what they do really well?
Right. Well, I think for me, I clearly remember, and I think I've told you this story before,
Mhm.
where I had to go into an audit
Mm.
and they asked me a specific question about a case. And because I had so many hands in the case, I was having to answer for somebody else's work. And that answer was not in that case of what I needed. And so here I was having to go back to this auditor going, I don't know.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
don't
have
know
to
when they
dig.
changed the
We're gonna have to find
causality
that.
to this, you know.
Mhm,
And so when you have to do that at that point, I think that was the final straw for me. I'm like, this is terrible. This has got to be fixed. I don't want
mhm,
to go in an audit anymore and have to answer for somebody else's work. I'd rather if I'm going to oversee And I mean, I want to know that I can go into that audit and be confident in what I'm looking at and what I'm reading.
Right. Yep. You need that quality there up front
Right.
so it's
Right.
easily defensible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and at first it just started as just talk between the 2 of
Mm-hmm.
us and
Mm-hmm.
then wishful thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
then the more we talked about it, we realized, why not us? Like, this
Why
is
not
an
try it?
actual need in our
Right.
industry. Why not us? Why can't we
Right.
start something to alleviate these problems?
Right. And for our listeners, for anybody who does have an idea and that idea just keeps coming at you, whether it's pharmacovigilance or anything you're into, it doesn't have to be even corporate stuff, anything. Like, take the leap.
So, we took the leap. And
Right.
then yep, so we know we're not the only ones trying to navigate the burnout, the pivots, leadership,
Yeah.
building a
Mm-mm.
business, and
Right.
parenthood, real life all at the same time, which kind of
Right.
brings us to our next topic of why we started this podcast. Why did we
Yeah.
start Bottom of the Scrub Bin? I believe because there are so many conversations that happen in healthcare, in pharma,
Healthcare,
in corporate,
being a mom.
yep, in parenthood that
Mm-hmm.
never make it
Or
into the
dad.
open. They're
Yeah.
being had,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not out there.
Mm.
It's all the stuff, like you said earlier, way back earlier, that we say in the break room, that you say in the daycare parking lot
Our
or in a group
debrief
test.
phone calls. You know, everybody,
Yes.
when you get off those calls, everybody's calling their work bestie
Mhm.
going with debriefing on the meeting they just
Yep.
had.
Like, what do you
So
think
I'm,
about
you know,
this?
right.
And
And we're all probably saying the same thing. So
yeah,
we're
like,
like,
did
we'll
that just
just,
happen? I need a hot minute.
so instead of just having debrief calls, we decided we'll create bottom of the scrub bin.
And we
Right.
talk about all of life's messy moments.
Right. You're not going to be the only one that shows up to a baseball game in slippers because you thought you had shoes on.
Done that. The sad thing is multiple times. And it's those real moments. Some episodes will
Yeah.
be us just talking through real experiences, lessons
Yeah.
we've learned the hard way, things we wish
Right.
someone had told us sooner. And some episodes will be funny because it's us.
Right.
And if you're not laughing, you're crying.
Right.
And some episodes will be a little deeper because we don't shy away from the hard stuff and we're not
No,
afraid to talk about those
no.
issues.
Let's just hope it doesn't get us canceled.
Yeah, no. Oh, please no. So, to our listeners, if you're ready to dive into what we can dig up at the bottom of the scrub
Right.
bin, if you're a nurse who's burned out, a healthcare professional who's curious about what else is out there professionally, a pharma
Yep.
person who feels like they don't fit, a working parent who's just trying to hold it together in the
Mhm.
chaos, or someone who just needs to hear that they're not alone and that we're in this together, well, this is
Right.
for you.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. So, well, that's a wrap on episode 1.
Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with us.
Yes, if any of this resonated with you at all, hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're using so you don't miss the next time we dig into the real stuff.
Yeah, again, we'd love to hear from you guys, whether it's feedback on the podcast. If you want to share your thoughts or even give us some episode ideas, please feel free to. You can message us on Instagram, YouTube, or even LinkedIn at Bottom of the Scrub Bin, or you can email us at bottomofthescrubbin@gmail.com.
Yes. Thanks for being here from Bottom of the Scrub Bin, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care, go refill your coffee, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for digging into the Scrub Bin with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit follow so you never miss what's next. And as always, stay real, stay kind, and stay curious. We'll see you the next time. Bottom of the Scrub Bin is a podcast produced under SafeCue Solutions, LLC. The views shared reflect our personal experiences and perspectives and are not intended as medical, legal, or professional advice, nor do they represent the views of any client or partner.